Wow, this is a big topic. Let me try and tackle it with 3 points, which just tells you I'm the preacher, doesn't it? But to say it is a big topic, and it is the cause of much debate and conversation around the place. I think, and I'll have a particular take on it, I think at the individual level, so put church aside for a moment, I'm convinced biblically that all Christians should be evangelising, though not all be evangelists in the formal capital E gifted sense. I think there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. I think the primary chief one is that if I come close to the God of the Bible, God himself is a missionary God. And if I'm close to the God who is a missionary God, then I should be about mission. He's the one who created the world to have relationship with himself. He has sought to work from the Old Testament through the New Testament to bring blessing to the nations. And that finds its preeminent expression in sending his Son to seek and save the lost. He then pours out his Spirit to bring about the mission of the world. And so God is a missionary God. If I know him well, I should be individually about having his heart for mission as well. I think you get the logic of the gospel compels me in this direction too. Anyone who has any sense of what God is about in seeking to save the lost from hell to heaven at the cost of his Son, and has a heart of love, can't help but be compelled to themselves want to see their friends won from hell to heaven. And the means, of course, by doing that, to do that is proclaiming the gospel word. It's the power of salvation. So if I've got a heart to see my friends who are going to hell without hearing the gospel word, I want to share the gospel word. So I think everyone should be about it. The logic of the gospel directs. The nature of the gospel itself. It's interesting, Jesus talks about anyone who loses his life for me and for the gospel will say that the language of the gospel there, I take it is more than just a declaration of words. I think it's a cause. So anyone who loses his life for me and for the cause of the gospel will save it. I take it what Jesus is teaching there is that you come close to God, you come close to me, you therefore be about the cause of the gospel yourself, which is to seek and save the lost through the proclamation of the word. Then you get, of course, numbers of New Testament sentences, statements that are read in light of all of that, such as make disciples of all nations. We should follow the example of Paul, who follows the example of Christ. We should declare his praises to the world around us. There's all kinds of evidences for individuals being about mission. But the church, should the church be doing mission? Well, it depends what you mean by church. So if you mean by church simply the ecclesia, the gathering, then there's very good reason to believe the gathering itself is the product of the gospel rather than the sender out of the gospel. It's the end point of gospel ministry. It's the outcome of evangelism. It is the gathering of those who have been won by the gospel to meet around God and his word and be edified. There's what church is. And I want to guard and protect that truth about church. It's the outcome of gospel mission. It's not the thing that does gospel mission. But as you gather to God around him and his word, the God who is the God of mission, who declares a word to edify us, if I'm not, as a community of people, built up to want to go back out again and reach the world with the gospel, then church is not edifying people like it ought. And church will always, according to 1 Corinthians 14, have the outsider amongst it who will be gospelled by the declaration of the word within it. So it does mobilise individuals for mission. It does do mission as outsiders are brought into it and their gospel in that environment. And I would say third, if I got my numbers right, so the individual, I think, should be about mission. I think the church is the end point of mission and the stirrer for mission, doing mission evangelism with the outsider amongst it. But I think thirdly, it would be very strange for a community of people gathering around the word of God, led by pastors who themselves are seeking to do the work of mission and evangelism, Timothy. It'd be very strange for a community to be gathered around God like that and not want to mobilise as a community to do things. And so it would be very strange if they didn't think about how we can pool our resources and work together, not just individually, to facilitate the evangelisation of the region we're in and the world around us. And so I think there's the flow of how mission is. It shouldn't just be done by the leaders. It should be everybody. It's not the task of the church as church, though evangelism happens within it and it's the end point of mission. But it will invariably, if it's a healthy church, mobilise groups and collectives to pool resource and make mission happen.